Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Today is Tuesday, August the 9th. Let that sit in for a minute. It is August the 9th. It is day 9 of Texans training camp that was just completed earlier today. No, I have not been to the beach. I have been to Texans training camp for 8 of those 9 days. So hence the glow. At any rate, welcome, welcome. So much happening in the world, period. But in the sports world, we're going to talk a lot today about the NFL and training camp. In particular, those Houston Texans. And I'm excited that in about 15 minutes or so, a good friend is going to join us, Jonathan Joseph. Jonathan Joseph played 15 years in the league. I got a chance to know him when he played for the Houston Texans before he retired. I think maybe he spent about 9 seasons. I don't want to quote that number, but Jonathan's going to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about what he's seen out at training camp and some things that he has going on. But until that time, what's the news from training camp? Well, it's day 9, and the Texans will open their preseason against the Saints on Saturday at NRG Stadium. They'll host the Saints. And listen, it's preseason, and as Coach Levy says, whenever you keep score, you want to win. Like, you like to win. But that's not what's most important in preseason, right? You can go 3-0 in preseason, and that's it. It's over. It means nothing. What happens is, how have you used it to prepare for the regular season? Did you find out what you needed to find out about the players that you brought in, about all systems go, all the things you've been installing and working on in the off season with, off-season workouts, OTAs, mini camps, rookie camp, and now training camp. So that's really the key. What is it they can find out? I've had people ask me on different days, who stood out to you at camp? What are you most excited about? That's a tough question. But I will tell you that, and people have asked me my thoughts about Davis Mills. Today wasn't his finest day at practice. But again, it's just practice, and none of it really matters. I don't think you can you get a sense, right? You got a sense, but you don't get a real good indication of what to expect until they're lining up and playing against people from another team, right? Because even though you have pads on, you're not going to take your player out, right? You're not going to approach it the same. So we'll get a better sense of some things when they line up against the Saints in the following 2 preseason games. Davis Mills looks okay. I mean, that's really what I can tell you. I have liked what I've seen from Brevin Jordan, the tight end. He looks different. He's leaner this year. He just looks like he's kind of gone to another level. The rookie Derek Stingley, who everybody's waiting to see what it is that this young man is going to give you. There's some who thought, I would have passed on him and gone another direction. But I talked to others who coach in the league, who saw him play in college, guys who play in the DB position in the NFL, and they are excited about what he can do. So Derek Stingley is somebody we're keeping our eyes on. They're bringing him along. And Dameon Pierce, a running back, who has, he's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty good at camp. Darius Anderson is another one who's looked pretty good. And then the veteran Marlon Mack. And I'm talking about the running game today because the running game has just been really non-existent the past couple of years. They've been at the bottom of the league. The Houston Texans have been at the bottom of the league when it comes to running backs. In terms it comes to their running game. So we're looking to see what that looks like. Of course, protection up front matters. They're going to be better up front, I do believe. And, they've got some guys in the room that might be able to, put together a pretty good run game plan. So we'll see. After practice today, we got a chance to talk to the running back coach, Danny Barrett. And he talked a little bit about running backs. And this is what Coach Barrett had to say about not just Dameon Pierce, but the room.
As far as the tempo and everything, and really conditioning factor. In the spring, he realized, the heat here and everything, so he did a good job in the offseason coming back in shape and the speed of the game. He's came back and kind of adapted to that as well. So far he's done a good job.
As far as rookies go, you've seen in your career, like, just, I know each player was different, but wrapping up to week one, how fair did he is in its way?
Well, again, when you compare it to over the years, I got a lot of years of coaching in, so I think he's on par, with what we've asked and expected of himself. The biggest thing is mentally every day, treat it like a new day, and he's been able to do that. And so hopefully now as we move closer to the game and everything, he starts to feel more comfortable and relax and have a good time.
So that was running back coach Danny Barrett after practice today. And I seem to be having some technical issues with my laptop because I had some other sound. I'll just have to post it to my social, so you guys will have to go and look at some of it later and talk with the secondary coach and also the offensive line coach after practice today. We don't always get to talk to the assistant coaches, but had a chance to talk with them today as well. But listen, let me first just say it was particularly hot today at practice, okay? It's always hot, but at least the Texans PR staff who do their best to accommodate the media, this current staff. And so they have water out there. They got a tent up, a little bit of cover so you can get out of the sun a bit. They have, ice water and Gatorade. And today they brought out some popsicles, right? How about that? So it was cool out. In that sense, it was cool. It was refreshing. It was a good moment. But yeah, this Houston Texans team, I don't know yet. I did a show the other day with a colleague and friend, Chris Gardner, over the weekend, and he asked me to go through the schedule and pick wins and losses for the Texans. So I don't really like to do predictions, especially before rosters are set, right? Because anything can happen. What if your quarterback QB1 goes down, or what if heaven forbid you lost you lost a Brandon Cooks, or there's just any number of things that could happen. And so until you know what the final roster is, I think is really difficult. And there's so many things that can happen along the way and throughout the season. How good can this Texans team be? Well, they're not playoff ready. Okay, they're not there. They should be definitely more competitive. And they were competitive. They competed in most games last year. There were a couple games where it was just, you can think of some. You can think of the game in Buffalo. You can think of the game at home. Was it against one of the LA teams? There are some games where you thought they didn't really compete like you would have liked to have seen. But for the most part, they were competitive. So to say they're going to be competitive, right, they should compete. They'll be better than that. They could be 7 wins. It just depends. They could finish 500. It's kind of tough to finish 500 with a 17-game season, but you know what I mean. So I think it's just about figuring out who this Texans team might be, what we might see from them along the way, and as cliche as this may sound, time will definitely tell. I'm going to put a pin in talking about the Texans for a moment, just because I'm going to save some of that for when Jonathan Joseph joins us shortly. But I do want to jump over and talk about those Houston Astros, right? This is go time. I did a show with someone, I can't remember where it was the other day, and they said, hey, do you think that the Astros are just going to kind of chill and mail it in? And I was like, why would they do that? Right now, they're a game behind the Yankees for the best record in the American League. While the Astros have not had the last 10 games, they haven't been great. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Yankees are 4-6. So that lead is, and people, they could have gained on it. Listen, I'm looking at the leaders in the American League. In the Central, it's Minnesota. They're 5-5 over the last 10 games. Houston's 5-5. New York, the Yankees are 4-6. Toronto's 5-5. Tampa's 5-5. There are only 3 teams in the American League that have winning records over the past 10 games. Baltimore with a 57-52 record, and they're 7 games back of the Yankees. They've gone 7-3. And then in the Central Division, Cleveland has gone 6-4. And the White Sox have gone 6-4. Both of those teams Cleveland is at 56 and 52, 56 wins, 52 losses, and Chicago's at 55 wins, 53 losses. So my point of saying that is what? Don't get too hung up about the last 10 games. Yeah, they could have made some ground, but they still can. So they open a 6-game homestand. They start with the Texas Rangers tonight, and then later in the week. What is this? Making sure I'm not missing something. Okay, no. They will play host to the Oakland A's. So, we'll see what they do. Dusty Baker, the Astros manager, was tested positive for COVID on Friday night. So he has been recovering from that. Missed a couple of games and missed those games over the weekend in Cleveland. So the reports say that he's doing fairly well. So we'll see what that looks like. We'll see how he's doing. But listen, you guys always hear me say, "Hey, good morning, Marcus Hackett. Welcome." You always hear me say on this show, be COVID cautious as much as you can. I mean, we can't live in bubbles, but just know that COVID is very much still with us. The numbers are rising. And so if you are not vaccinated, here I go again, I'm encouraging you to get vaccinated. And once you're vaccinated, if you're vaccinated, then get the booster. I mean, just give yourself as much protection as possible. I have not had COVID, at least not that I know of, because early on, we weren't really getting tested. But if I did, I was never knocked out by it. So I don't know many people who haven't had COVID, but do everything you can if you do get it, that you can be as protected as possible. And there are no guarantees. People are getting it multiple times. I understand that. I'm just saying, give yourself the best shot, right? Give yourself the best shot. Good morning, Don Payne. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. It's always good to have you guys in the room. So listen, the Houston Astros, as I mentioned, are playing the Texas Rangers at Minute Maid Park for the next 3 days. And the Rangers, I didn't tell you what they're doing. Let me go back to the Rangers. Where are they? The Rangers are 4-6 over the last 10 games. They have a record of 48-60. So the Astros should make up some ground these next few games. They need to win this homestand because the goal is to pass the Yankees and to get that number 1 seed in the American League for the playoffs. All right. So I can't believe I almost buried the lead. To me, the biggest sports story of the day is this: Serena Williams has announced. Oh, you're not getting volume? Okay, thank you for that. Let me see here. Let me go back and see what's happening with the settings. Audio. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Let's do this. 2, 3. Okay, are you getting volume now, Carol? Thank you for saying that. I'm just talking, and I guess you guys can hear me. Let me know if you're getting volume now. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate it. Okay. I'm going to assume, Carol, that you are getting volume because you didn't say anything else. I changed the mic settings, so hopefully. Okay, test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. I've changed the mic settings, so hopefully that you are. All right, so are you getting the volume now, Carol? Let me know, let me know. Hey, Gregory Anderson, checking in. It's good to see you, my friend. Thank you for being a part of the show. Carol said, I thought I'd just check in. It's been a while, but I recognize God is still doing a great work in you. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're very kind, my friend. Thank you for that. I received that and I appreciate it. Hello, hello, Gregory Anderson. It's good to have you in the room. have you on this as a part of the show. And can one of you guys tell me if you're getting volume? Just make sure that you are getting volume, because Carol said earlier she was not. So I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Okay, so you are getting volume. Thank you, Gregory Anderson. I appreciate it, definitely. That means you can hear me. Okay, perfect. All right, so here's the deal. The biggest story of the day, you are loud, okay? All right, so I'm going to back up a little bit. So listen, and clear. Okay, I appreciate it. The biggest story of the day is this. Serena Williams has announced that she is going to retire after the US Open. I've been waiting to see what Serena might do, when she might make that announcement. And I'm glad that she didn't just decide to walk away, right? She announces her retirement. She's going to retire after the US Open, after the US Open of this year. And I'm glad that she didn't just fade away into the sunset. She has meant so much to the game and has accomplished so much in the sport that she deserves at least, if not an entire season, which she won't do that, but go out at the US Open, right? That's her tournament, that's her space. And so she's preparing to say farewell to a professional tennis career that has included 23 Grand Slam victories, the most in the Open era. She has her career she's a 22-year career. Let that sit in for a moment. A 22-year career. Serena Williams, in an editorial that they penned in September, Williams, who is 40, revealed that while she loves tennis, it's time to move on. And listen, I think people forget that she's actually 40, and they forget how long she's played, because she's played at such a level for so long. How do you play at that level for more than 2 decades? It just doesn't happen. And so good for her. While she can still compete and she's still always a possible threat, after time, I mean, what do they say? There's nothing you can do about time, right? At some point, your body starts to say, this is it. This is all I have. Yes, I may have some moments, but she's competed at such a high level. I'm glad that she's leaving while she's still really playing at a high level. So good for Serena Williams. She said, hey, I don't want it to be over. It's one of the hardest things she says she's had to do. But she's ready for what's next. And she said, unfortunately, I wasn't ready to win Wimbledon this year. I don't know if I'll be ready to win in New York, but I'm going to try. So we'll talk more about Serena Williams leading up to the US Open. I'll try to get Zena Garrison on with us so that we can talk a little bit tennis. But speaking of a player who had an incredible career, 15 years in the National Football, which is a long time, especially in football. I like to welcome my longtime colleague now, but friend, Jonathan Joseph. Wait, let me see what happened. I think he's frozen. He may have to reboot. I'll wait till I see him in the stream. Jonathan Joseph is going to be joining us. He's trying to get in, so as soon as he does, I'll pop him up on screen. But I think he's probably got a little bit of an internet lag. He's going to come back because he's been here before. So yeah, you're right, Carol. Magnificent job by Serena Williams. I just can't really say enough about what she's done as a champion. And I like to talk about her as a champion, what she's done as a professional and a champion. Hello, Jonathan Joseph.
Hey, sorry, my internet went out.
Hey, I know that's technology, right? Hey, welcome,
for
welcome.
sure. Definitely over my head, for sure.
Thank you for popping in today. Before you got in, I was saying that Serena Williams announced today that she's retiring after the US Open. And I'm like, 22 years, and to play at the level she did for that long. You're talking about more than 2 decades. That doesn't happen a lot, and I know that you follow tennis a bit too. Your thoughts about just the career of Serena Williams?
I think it's second to none. Obviously, started at a very young age as a professional, and she started jumping onto the scene. It was just obviously her sister was there for her, and she just came on as a different type of phenomenon. Muscular, strong, fierce, and she just took the fights each and every year. I think the 2 decades in maintain that level of dominance is speaks volumes about the way she was raised, her work habits, the way she takes care of her body, and just the way she go about business and everything that she's put into the sport of tennis.
So I think your internet is popping in and out again. Let me see. I'm going to pop you out and then pop you back in. Okay, he's going to come back. Listen, I understand about technology. I couldn't get some of the clips I wanted to play for you today, but that's what happens. And especially in this new age of media, you just got to roll with it. It's like live TV, but it's digital. So he'll try to get back on with us. You're right. What she put into the game and the level of play, the level that she competed at for so long. I mean, 23 career Grand Slam titles. There's just not enough you can say. I mean, we can do a whole Serena Williams show, and we actually might do that to just think about the highlights of her career, how she changed the game, and what she's meant to tennis and what she's meant to American tennis, because it had been a while, if you remember, to have somebody to be a champion for so long at that level. And even now, at 40 years old, when she steps onto the court, she is still a threat. There's no one who's going to take Serena Williams for granted when they see her. So kudos to her. Speaking of playing a long time, Jonathan, you played, 15 years in the league?
Yes, correct. 15.
What do you say about what it takes just to have a career that spans that long, especially in a sport like football that's so physical?
I think you have to be extremely lucky first and foremost. I think you have to have a lot of things go your way. Obviously to stay healthy, to be playing at a high level, to be, teams don't really want you if you can't play once you hit, a certain age number. They're starting to look for youth and things like that. So I think there's a lot that go into it, from a player's perspective. You have to be aware of your personal situation and where you are and where you're at in your career. And you have to be able to adjust with times. You can't be stuck in ways to where, used to work for you. You have to be able to adapt, new coaching scheme, just new change of rules or whatever it is to that effect that may affect you as a player, ways that can help you prolong your career.
So I've seen you out at Texans Camp. Of course, you look like you could still play. How have you settled into retirement, and what's it like being at training camp on the sidelines in street clothes?
It's definitely a different feeling. I'm past the stage now where you have the itch to get out there and play. Obviously, you always miss it because it's nothing like playing out there in the National Football League. The camaraderie, the competition level is second to none. At the highest level, each play, about 20 seconds breaking you right back again. So training camp is a special part of football to where guys get to make that bond. The team is made, the team is formed, and you have one common goal. That's to go win the Super Bowl. So I think obviously, playing for so long, you miss those moments. But at the same time, I enjoy sitting over there and watching the younger guys, the next generation of players come through.
What have you seen with this Texans team? And I know you haven't been there every day. Who stands out to you? And I'm going to ask you in particular about the secondary, because obviously that's where you played. The young Derek Stingley, Pitre, Nelson. What do you see from this? What do you first see from Stingley, and then just the secondary in general?
I think when I watch Stingley, I think he's poised for a rookie. Obviously coming in, high draft pick, spotlight is always going to be on you. Everywhere you go is going to be cameras. There's going to be people in your face. They watching your move, your teammates, judging, how well you're going to play. Are you going to live up to that? And there's a lot to go into that. I was a first-round pick. Obviously, I wasn't as drafted as high as him, but it's the same expectations. You come in, they expect you to come in and be immediate contributor. And I think he's done that right away, just being out there as a starter, being available, battling an injury that he had, coming back from that, showing his teammates that he's able to be a professional, come back from that, fight in the training room and do the right things. And I think throwing a guy like Steve Nelson, who's been around before, he's a capable starter, can play at a high level. And he's done it, everywhere he's been. And I think is a good position for him also to come in and be able to show the younger guys the ropes. And, a guy like Desmond King, same situation, been on this team before. So he's more like a veteran on this team because he's familiar with the guys in the locker room a little bit, the coaching staff, maybe the scheme also because of last year. And then you look at Jalen, guy that's, he's a hometown hero pretty much.
Yeah.
He's right in his backyard. So he has his own expectations, but at the same time, he'll have a different set of distractions that come along with that, And I think overall, when I just watch this team, the team speed just sticks out to me. Front to back, offense and defense. I think they've done a great job of just putting speed on the field. And I think when you get the pieces that come together and you got team speed, you can have success in this league. And I think they're out to a good start, from just getting all those pieces to kind of come together. The guys love one on his defense to fit his scheme. I think offensively, the guys what Pep want to do the things that he need to do to get them guys rolling over there.
You mentioned team speed, and that's something because you can't really coach speed, right? So it being physical is great, but having that team speed, which is not something they had on both sides of the ball consistently in a minute, right? So that's got to be a plus. And to think about the way Coach Lovey plays, it makes sense that they would go out and get players that have more speed. What do you think about? So you're gonna be in the booth this weekend, right? In the Saints game. Tell us about that and how that came about and what you're thinking about it, how you're approaching it.
I did the broadcast boot camp, and I think that was just an experience to go out there and just, get my feet wet and get introduced to that side of the sports world. And I think me playing here in Houston for a long time, obviously building relationships and things like that. The opportunity was offered, for me, is more like getting more practice reps, but at the same time, being in a real live, true situation, more so than a boot camp situation. So I think when it was presented to me, obviously being around Mark and those guys a long time, I trust those guys. And I think, they can give me great advice and, lead me in the right direction. And I think for me, it's just about taking the next step. If it's something that I want to be serious about, you obviously have to do the things that put the work and the time in to be good at any profession.
Well, that's exciting. I didn't know you went to broadcast booth camp. How was that, and what did you take away from it? Like, what did you learn about this business that you didn't know before? Because you've been around the business a long time, but before, what did you learn from going to that camp that you didn't know before?
I would say I don't want to say all the work that goes on behind the scenes because I've always been aware of that, but it's the small details into the way they go about doing things. Like if you're on the radio versus on the air. If I'm on the radio, I can't call this game the same way versus live television because I don't have an audience that can see. So it's very, very few words that it's certain words that I can't say because they can't see it. So I can't come out and be like, well, did you see this? Well, hey, look at this, because it just doesn't make sense because they can't physically see it. So you have to learn to, block out certain words and adjust to those things. And when you're in the boot camp, it's not like you have, multiple days. You have just however many minutes you have in that setting to adjust. And obviously you get to go home and do your homework and learn from your mistakes because they had coaches to give you feedback in certain situations. So just, went through journalism, interviewing and doing those things and finding ways to grasp attention from people, make them comfortable to where they can open up and just different things that, also can lead over to just having a normal conversation with people in life. So it's a lot to take away from it, but at the same time, I enjoyed it.
Well, good. So do you think is this something that you might consider? I remember when you retired and we talked to you probably about a year ago, and you said you were going to give yourself a minute, be more active, helpful around the house. Like you said the other day, you're like your kid's Uber driver, but and just kind of settle in and see what feels right to you. So broadcasting or coaching, are you looking at them both? Are you thinking like maybe I want to explore more one than the other?
I think obviously it has to be about opportunity because, those jobs just don't pop up. You have to, I think obviously be pretty good, be serious about it and know the right people. But I think for me, I think I'm well-rounded in both. I think obviously being around the game for so long and then, just watching sports in general. I'm not just a fan of just football. I watch all sports. So I've been learning and listening to, television broadcasts and things throughout my life. I just love sports, so I've always paid attention. And I think it's something that, you can naturally transition into if you put the time and the work into, It's not like I'm going from something that I've never been around before, haven't had,
Mm-hmm.
a few practice reps that have been around people that's into it. So I think for me, that's obviously the first thing that grabbed my attention. And then, coaching, I've done it to a certain degree, whether extended coach on the field or with my kids and things like that. So that's a natural fit also, but it has to make sense for me and be the right opportunity also.
So when we were out at practice, and maybe it was on Sunday, um, and we were talking a little bit about how now the numbers are different, right? It used to be that you could kind of tell positions based on the numbers that a player would wear. Is that, and to me, I thought maybe it's just me that thinks that's so different, but that caught you kind of had a similar experience too. Like, yeah, you got to, knowing the personnel, you can't just tell by the numbers anymore.
Oh, for sure, because first thing, I always did as a defensive back, want to know the down and distance and the personnel because that tells me a
Hmm.
lot. And then, sometimes when you don't catch it, you can just look off body types. Or if you're on the offensive side as a quarterback, I can only imagine how it looks if you play against a team that's a 3-4, meaning three defensive linemen and four linebackers. But some of these
Hmm.
linebackers and safeties are starting to look just similar in size because the game has gotten so fast with speed. These guys are no longer 250 pounds. Some of these linebackers are 230 pounds. Safeties 215. So they all look similar walking up there around the line of scrimmage when they have on single digit and low digits because normally if a guy has on a 50, he's a linebacker, 20 and 30, 40 is defensive back, so on and so on. But now I think it does make guys have to do a little extra homework and actually know who's on the field and in certain positions.
Are you nervous or excited? What are your thoughts about being in the booth this weekend?
I wouldn't say nervous. Obviously, it's a little bit of anxiety because it's something new and it's a challenge, and you're back out there around the game. So just you can't get caught up in the moment to where watching the game too much and understand what you're there for, and your job is to call the game and fill in for whatever's need be. And I think it's not like it's a regular season game, so the outcome doesn't really mean much. If
Right.
that makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Right.
Right. Right.
So, like in broadcast boot camp, they put us right in the middle of the very first game that I called started off in 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it just jumped right in, like because they put you in a certain amount. You only probably have you call 3 or 4 minutes of the game, and by the time the word gets out, everybody knows it now. But if you're in that first group, they're like, hey, you just go right in there. And as soon as you get on the headset and get into the game, it's right in a 2 minute and it's rolling. So this would be totally different, I think, from the preseason. Obviously, you got to know all the players because the roster isn't set. It's a bigger roster, guys fighting for positions. The starters won't be there as much. So it's just ways that you can talk the game to the fans, let them learn the game and see the game that way also.
Do you have any favorite broadcasters, people that you listen to, and you obviously want to find your own kind of style and way, but do you have any favorites that you follow and say, I like the way this person calls a game or that person?
Well, football is always John Madden and Chris Collinsworth in football for me, those two
Hmm.
guys. And I think in basketball, I was a basketball fan, so Hubie Brown, um, Bill Walton, obviously Steph and Mark. Steph Van Gundy, Mark, um, Jackson, those
Jackson.
guys.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mike Breen, all those guys. Because I've just been a fan of the NBA, and those guys been there forever. The way they call the games and just the way they're animated, the way they're able to, catch certain moments and just do their thing in the games. So it's been just fun for me to watch that. And now, with social media coming around, they started to put memes around and things that they catch that these people were saying from commentators. But I've been watching it for years and seeing it ever since I was young. But it's funny to me now.
I want to hop back to the Texans real quick before I let you go. You got a chance to you've seen Jonathan Owens kind of coming up, and he was a part of the practice squad and putting in the work. What do you see about his growth and development? And really, is this the year you think he gets a chance to really kind of make a place for himself on this team?
I think so. He's a guy that I always was pulling for. It's funny because we probably not much time off the field that we probably ever spent, but in practice, my last couple of years here, he would be the guy that would be on the look team. So he would always be the wide receiver going against me, showing me the routes that the other team would be doing while we was in individual drills and things like that. So me and him, we would always talk, and I would always work him and give him little techniques and talk. But back then, we were so man to man, and it was all about, can you cover man to man? Can you win? And can you do this? And it's hard on a young player in that scheme because I've seen so many guys come and go. So to see a guy like him stick it out, change his body type, because when he first came in, he always, was a muscular guy and things like that. But I think he's taken his nutrition as serious, worked hard, and got his body to where he's a guy that can play multiple positions back there, special teams, and he's earned his value, put his time in on the practice squad, done all the right things, student of the game, great teammate. So I'm pulling for him because, it's rare that you see a guy go through several coaching changes like that.
It's true. And I feel the same way. I'm pulling for him too. I mean, you've seen him just putting in the work, sticking it out, and still being there. So we will see. Listen, thank you. I know you had a busy day with the kids. You're at practice. I appreciate you jumping in with me again. I'll be calling on you soon. But if you need any help, if there's anything I can do to help you about what you're getting into, I'm happy to do it. So excited to listen to you on Saturday. I always have my earphones on, even though I'm in the stadium, and I have no doubt that you are going to do a great job. And if this is what you want to do, I wish you nothing but the best.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Kim. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll see you later, my friend. Jonathan Joseph, who has always been, as you guys know, one of my favorite players on and off the field, and was glad to see that I didn't know he'd gone to boot camp, but that he's going to get a shot, have an opportunity. It's what it's all about, right? It's about opportunities, and I'm glad that he's getting one. It's about that for all of us in whatever it is we're doing. And so Jonathan Joseph has always maintained a pretty good, a good attitude, right? He's always been the same guy, whether they win or lose in terms of after game, his level of professionalism. And that I always appreciated. And there were other guys like that on the team, on these Texans teams I've covered, but he's one of the ones that I just could always have conversations with off mic, just about the game, the competition, and other things. And that's how I've always, like he says, the game's always changing. Although I've covered the league a long time, I'm always still learning, just like the other players are learning. So like the players are learning, whether I'm not a player, of course, but it's good to be able to talk to guys who are actually out there in the action and getting some of their feedback and input about whether game plan, whether about personnel matchups, any of those things. It helps me be better at what I do. And so if there's anything I can do to help Jonathan Joseph, of course I would do that, right? So yeah, thank you, Carol. I appreciate having him join us. We're going to be getting some other folks joining us as we get ready to get into the regular season. And I am really excited about what's ahead. I'm sorry I wasn't able to bring you this interview today with Stephen Silas. I'll put that on my social media, but there's something happening with my computer, so I couldn't play any more clips. But I will tell you that Stephen Silas was out at Texans practice last week, and he didn't just pass through. He watched an entire practice. He even took a few minutes to come over and talk to some of us, those of us in the media, did a couple of interviews, and he talked about watching it and the similarities of this Texans team and this Rockets team in terms of young talent trying to learn it to do it the right way, what coaches have to do in terms of the installation process. And he wanted to see how the Texans use analytics. Of course, they use it heavily in basketball and heavily with the Rockets, but how they integrate it. So there were things he said he could pick up from what they did. And he's a football fan. He's a Lovie Smith fan. So it was cool to see him out there. So do I think I can get the Texans coach to come online briefly? So you're talking about head coach Lovie Smith? I doubt it. Just because they, the post-game interviews and the interviews after practice that I play, I can get those. But in terms of him joining the show, they really make it a point to keep those interviews for their broadcast partners. It doesn't mean no forever, but I do in the season it be a no because of the time my show is. But what I might be able to do and what I will work on because the Texans staff is trying to do some things differently to see if I can even just get a one-on-one with him that I could air on the show. But yeah, I would not be able to get him live on the show just because of when my show airs and his schedule. But I am working to get some time with Lovey Smith, kind of one-on-one, where I could get him to talk to us and just the Chalk Talk audience. So when that happens, and I'm just going to speak it into existence, I of course will let you guys know and put it across all of my platforms. But Lovey and the other coaches do a great job of, you know, being available and accessible at practice, after practice. And so if there's something that he could do, I think he might. But I mean, it'd be something that maybe I would get a few minutes if I could after practice. But I think also the people that pay for those relationships, the broadcast partners, that's part of the exclusivity that they are kind of proud of. Like you're only really going to get the one-on-ones with him on those stations. So that would be on Channel 13 and on Sports Radio 610, which I get it from a business decision side. Hey, listen, that is going to do it for me today. We are out of time. Thank you for bearing with me with a few technical issues at the top. I need to go and find out what's happening with the storage on my computer and my studio so that I can upload and be able to share with you the interviews that I like to always run during the show, not just the live interviews, but the ones I record at practice. So make sure that you're following me on all of my social platforms. I also want to remind you that Chalk Talk is, we tried it briefly. I tried it briefly to make it, to have a later show. And it's just, our audience is just not a nighttime show because we've done Chalk Talk late morning for so many years. So Chalk Talk at 11 every Tuesday. I had somebody ask me yesterday, when are you going to add another day? That could happen. I am working on a few things. I also want to remind you that Chalk Talk is sponsored. It's brought to you by Kimmy Treats. Go to kimmytreats.com. Order some popcorn, right? It ships really well. Vegan popcorn has have your Netflix and chill time. You can order it. It ships anywhere. If you want to try the body butter, just know that this time of year, the body butter is probably going to arrive melted. All you have to do is sit it in the refrigerator for it to kind of reformulate, and then you can use it. Then you can, use it the same. But because of this heat, if you order the body butter online, it's more than likely I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty sure it's going to arrive and be melted, but it'll be fine when you put it back in the refrigerator. If you're in Houston and you don't want to deal with that, you can go over to Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli. They also carry the body butter and the popcorn. I just took them a new order on yesterday, so be sure to go check out Sunshine's. That's a great place to explore and try some other things they have. That's where you can get it without having to have it shipped. If you're in Houston, if you're anywhere else in the country, then you would have to have it shipped. So listen, thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure that you share this show with your online community. I'm going to edit out the beginning part where I think we had some audio issues, and I will repost it. So I'll do that, and then I will post that I have updated the show and the broadcast so that you can, if you share it, you'll be sharing the show in its entirety. All right. Thanks as always. And remember, if you are not vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you're not registered to vote, you got to register to vote, right? Make sure that you're registered. If you are registered, help somebody who's not, help them get registered. And if somebody says, well, why should I vote? Well, if you care about your kid's school, you should vote. If you care about what's happening with the roads wherever you live, you should vote. If you care about your taxes for your small business or for your family and your home, you should vote. If you care about medical care, health care, prescription drug prices, any of those things matter to you, then you should vote. If you care about food supply. And whether you're in a food desert, if you have access to great food, then you should vote. Listen, if you care about how safe your community is, are you over policed? Are you under policed? Do you have concerns about gun control? If any of those things matter to you, you should vote. There's really nothing that you are interested in. If you talk the health and safety and well being of your family, you should vote. So I would never tell you who you should vote for, but I'm going to always encourage you to vote. And that's got to start with you being registered. So listen, make it a great day, everybody. I will see you next time. And you're right. Make it a great day. I'll see you next time. Have a great week.